Hey, what's good, guys? Today I'll be breaking down a few questions that I've been asked recently, specifically for beginners that are looking to transition into either Muay Thai, MMA, boxing. All this advice will pretty much translate to each of these sports. Like I said, it's mainly for beginners and people that just don't know where to start. So, a common question I've been getting asked recently is, hey man, I'm looking to start Muay Thai in about a few weeks to a month. What are some things that I can work on now that'll make the transition a little bit easier for me? So I'd recommend increasing your water intake to about 3 to 4 liters of water a day. Obviously, consult your doctor just to be safe, make sure that's okay for you. Now, in terms of what else you could do before starting, I would recommend increasing your cardio, your physical endurance. You could practice running 3 to 4 times a week. Do it safely, obviously. Try not to kill your joints. Make sure you're doing it properly, running on the balls of the foot, not slamming your heels on the ground. That being said, even if you can't run a lot or you've never ran in your life before, you can start with under a kilometer run at a nice light pace jog. If you're going to join a Muay Thai, MMA, or boxing gym, you're going to realize it is extremely cardio oriented. So if you're coming with no cardio, it's going to be very difficult. For some people, when I was teaching that never really trained much or did any other sports, just the warm up with skipping was exhausting, and that would sometimes just put people out. So I would recommend running 3 to 4 times a week. Even if you're doing twice a week, that's fine. Try to incorporate at least one day for sprints. If you have access to a skipping rope, or you can buy one for like $15, I'd recommend buying that skipping rope. Skipping for about 5 to 15 minutes. It helps with footwork, it helps you become light on your feet, and it's a really good way to start your cardio, considering most gyms will require you to do it for the warm-up. Something else that's very important is developing your mindset. So making that paradigm shift now, if you do have a really big ego, I would really work on that before going to the gym. Regardless, showing up to the gym is the best place to be. But since you're already aware of this, you're preparing to go to a gym, I would keep that in mind. Something I've noticed from teaching the last 3 to 5 years was students that would come in, let's say, brand new. Something I would notice quite often, the students that were willing to be open-minded, put their ego aside, and actually learn the proper fundamentals and techniques would far surpass people that had been training 2, 3, 4 times as long as them. At one of the gyms I taught at, there was a group of good friends. They were Russian and French, I believe. They always trained together. They never really wanted to get other looks of training. And I guess because I was a young instructor, they didn't really take me serious, which I get, that's fine. They were there for about a year and a half, and they still weren't pivoting on basic punches through pad work. They weren't maintaining a proper stance. They were crossing their legs. They were just kind of all over the place. And anytime I would offer feedback, even if it was something very simple, I would break it down. They would just brush me off. They would give me the signs that they were not interested in me being there helping them. And that's fine. I continue to do so anyways because I want to make sure people are developing good technique. However, after a while, with these guys specifically, they really just took it the wrong way. I would break the technique down as I'm demoing the combinations in as much detail as possible. And then for them, it was up to them to take that information and apply it or continue doing the same bad habits that they were doing. But these guys, anyways, had been there for about a year and a half. Very, very, I would say even under average in terms of skill for that timeline. And then I had a couple other dudes like Wensi, for example. Really good dude, super open-minded, super dedicated, putting just as much effort as these guys. And I think within 3 months, he was far surpassed them. Not only was he smashing the pads better, sparring better, his technique was flawless compared to theirs. So this is what I mean. These guys had been here for a year and a half, but because they had such a big ego, they really were a detriment to their own progress. Whereas a guy like Wensi, guy had been there for 3 months, and he was looking better than the average dude at that gym who had trained for a year. Was there some talent involved? Possibly. But one thing I noticed was he was always asking questions, always willing to learn, putting the same effort as everyone else, maybe a bit more, and just showing up. So it goes a long way, and he's not the only example. There's many people I've noticed that are super open-minded, and within a short period of time are just passing the average person. And I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. It's something that's not often talked about. When you're starting out at a gym, whether you're beginner or down the road, one common thing is, just show up, put the effort, improve your diet, improve your cardio, and just be there for sparring, pad work, bag work, and runs. One thing that's honestly overlooked a lot is mindset. And mindset will hold you back not only in fighting, but in everyday life. So it is important to get a hold of that ego and just realize that there's always things we can improve, regardless if it's a young instructor, old instructor, you don't like him, whatever, that's fine. You should still be open-minded enough to listen to what they're saying, especially if what they're saying makes sense and they're breaking it down in a simple format for you to understand. If you choose not to listen based on any other reason, you don't like them, they're young, whatever, you're only holding yourself back. So mindset's super important. Besides that, mobility, even when you're training, is not really talked about much. You do basic warm-ups, usually a bit of dynamic stretching, which makes more sense for Muay Thai as opposed to static stretching before. You want to make sure your muscles are loose, limber. You don't want everything to be kind of stretched out and tight after. So mobility is very important. Like I said, often very overlooked. Even myself, I'm guilty of it. I still don't put enough time into mobility, and I know I should be. So that is something that I'm actively working on. I would recommend getting a foam roller or getting a massage gun. Those honestly help. It's more than just that though. Those are kind of like recovery tools after. I would recommend everyone getting at least a 5 to 20 minute mobility routine daily. It will pay dividends because if you're weightlifting and then on top of that, you're training Muay Thai, you're going to get a lot of strains, a lot of sore muscles. Your back will be sore one day. You don't take the time to recover it with mobility and rest. You go back to train the next day, you have a pulled muscle or you have pinched nerves in your traps. You'll get so many of these recurring injuries if you don't take the time to properly recover your body, that it's honestly a detriment in the long run. And Muay Thai is already extremely physical. Who wants to be in pain every single day? And I'm suffering from that, realizing this 12 years later after most of my life training, that like my back's messed up, my neck's always sore. I feel like I have to always crack my neck now. A lot of bad habits I'm actively trying to get out of. So these are things that you can implement right away that'll make a massive difference for you in the long run. So far we covered diet, water intake, mindset, making sure that you leave your ego at the door, coming in with the mindset of you're willing to learn, you're willing to improve, but you need to make sure that mindset is on point. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You're wasting valuable money, time and resources to get there. Why not get the most out of it? And that applies to anything in life. If you're putting time and effort into it, you should be taking it very seriously. If you feel like the instruction you're getting is not good information, or it's very much lacking, or they're not breaking things down, at that point I'd recommend going to a different gym. Because obviously you don't want to develop bad habits. Because muscle memory is such an important thing with Muay Thai or any sort of combat sport, any sport, to be honest. Once you develop years of bad habits, then you go somewhere and they're like, no, that's wrong. Here's the actual way to do it. They explain it to you. It makes more sense. Well, now it's going to be super difficult. Even though your mind knows I should be doing this, your muscle memory is still going to take over. So even if you're in that moment on the pad works, kind of focused on literally just improving that one thing, the minute you go to sparring or bag work, you're just going to be in the moment and you're going to be going back to that bad technique. And it would make more sense in the long run to just focus on good technique, take your time, really improve. And then as you get better, you're implementing good technique. As opposed to developing horrible technique, never listening, having an ego, and then when it comes time to spar, for example, or you realize that down the road, wow, I was doing all this bad technique, I need to change it. Well, now it's going to be very, very difficult. Now you're going to be implementing bad technique, you're going to be aware of it, you're going to be more frustrated, and it's just a lot more difficult in general. So that being said, I'm going to try to keep these videos between 5 to 10 minutes. If you guys have any other questions, make sure to hit me up on TikTok, Instagram, or in the comment section on YouTube. Please make sure to subscribe. I would appreciate it, guys. And let me know if you guys would like me to cover anything else.